Oh, hey there. Hey, how are you? Welcome to Off Field. I'm Nate Jackson. I'm here with Scott Shaffer. It's a crazy day in Denver sports, but we're talking football with you today. But first, would you like to save some more money? I bet you would. Go to trustedamerican.com. Trusted American Mortgage wants to help you save money, get into a better interest rate, lower your monthly mortgage payment. How does that sound? Go to trustedamerican.com. See how much they can save you today.
Hello and welcome in.
Please do not leave your luggage unattended on the station.
Welcome to the show.
Hey!
Welcome, everybody.
What's
As Nate said, this is Off Field. I'm Scott Shaffer. That's former/forever Denver Bronco.
That's right.
Nate Jackson. And how are you doing, Nate?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm good. We have a lot of some CU Pro Day
Yeah.
to talk about.
Yeah, before, though, how's your shoulder feeling? I know
Shoulder's feeling better. I got a call from a guy, an ex-NFL player, yesterday telling me what I need to do with it, that I don't need to ignore it, so I'm not kind of running around all, I don't know.
Well, before we
Being
get and we're going to break down CU's Pro Day, actually the CU's NFL Showcase, and we're going to see some clips from it.
Yeah.
We're going to talk to Brandon Krisztal, who's going to join us later, and he was there, boots on the ground, if you will. But I don't know. You guys tell me, so Scott dislocated his shoulder in a intramural basketball game. Significantly enough, he had to go to the hospital and spend 5 hours there because they couldn't get the shoulder back in.
Yep.
Fractured your scapula or something?
Fractured scapula, fractured the humerus head, something like that.
Yeah, not very humorous. Was
No,
it?
not at all. No, I was not laughing a lot.
No,
Yeah,
the funny man wasn't laughing.
The
huh?
noises that were coming out of my mouth were pain and
Yeah.
yelling and agony.
And so all that stuff ripped, and it was a pretty gruesome injury. And so I talked to him. I was like, "So how's it going? Have you seen a doctor?" He's like, "No, not yet. I got a plan to see an orthopedist or whatever they call those that they recommended.
Well,
but I don't think I need surgery." I'm like,
They
"Wait,
said
you don't know if you need surgery."
I wasn't saying that because I thought that. The doctors who x-rayed me twice were saying, we don't think you need surgery, but
I thought that was
still-
your assessment.
no, I'm not an idiot. I was a C student. I went to community college. I don't need to be making these calls. However, I am still going.
Okay.
But even if they tell me I need surgery, I probably can't afford it. So
You need no. But like I was telling you, I mean, you want a good quality of life.
yeah, no, I know.
You
And that's
want to
why
be
I'm
able
going
to
to go there.
do normal stuff like yard work, man stuff.
And I would love it to go there and they tell me I don't need surgery. That would give me peace of mind. That would give me a kind of a little quality of life that I think would be better.
Well,
But,
you seem like you got more pep in your step
little bit.
today, and so
Yeah.
happy to have you here to
Thank you.
break down
I'm-
CU's Pro Day.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about the Pro Day because I watched it. We actually we were talking about the Prime Effect
Yeah,
because this is on NFL Network.
yeah.
That means they have a whole year to cover. They need stuff. They need content, right?
Yeah.
But how did you think it looked?
So it was really interesting. I mean, Coach Prime does things different. He does.
Yeah.
It's bigger. It's
Sure.
it's a little bit of circus when it comes to town. I mean, when he first got here a couple years ago, we remember the star-studded sort of sidelines. I mean, The Rock was out there, Lil
Sure.
Wayne was there, everyone was there, everyone's interested, all the eyeballs are coming. The problem is that once all the eyeballs come, now you got to perform.
Sure.
Right? And 2 years ago when Coach Prime first got here, they won 3 straight games, became the biggest story in college in
Absolutely.
sports.
Absolutely.
Everyone was here, and then they lost 8 of their last 9.
Yeah.
And ended up 4-8, kind of a disappointing season. Last year, the expectations were very high, and they were able to, make a bowl game, but maybe not go as far as even they believe they should have
Yeah.
gone. They lost some games late in the season that were big letdowns, and now they got to say goodbye to Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter, who transcendent players and
Absolutely.
have both galvanized this town. Right?
And a lot of people, absolutely, Gavin, a lot of people might not know necessarily what a Pro Day is,
Yeah.
or maybe not know what it looks like. But we have some footage.
We do.
We do.
Shot
Our
by
own
our
Jet
very
Live.
own Jet Live. Could you roll that, Andy? We got a nice little sizzle reel here of those guys working out. Yep, there's
Wearing his own merch.
there's Travis, no gloves on for a receiver, kind of running a double move there. Oh, there's the pat heard around the world. He's patting the
man.
ball.
Everyone's
Pat.
talking about it.
These are those guys warming up. Boom. Shoot. I mean, the Underwear Olympics, they call some of this stuff, and every scout, lots of GMs, lots of coaches were at this thing. Look, that's just kind of him warming up, and getting going. No. He says, no, I'm done there.
You just make your wide receiver noises.
Yeah, that's what you do when you stick your foot in the ground. You gotta go.
Can't help yourself.
So yeah, there was Jimmy Horn too, and this is not just about Travis and Shedeur. And there was a question as to whether or not Shedeur was going to throw or Travis was going to do this kind of stuff. And okay, you're doing too much there, Travis.
Well, like you can do whatever you want when you're wearing your own T-shirt. He's got his own merch on. I like that.
Yeah. Well, he won the Heisman. He can. You know, he's earned that. What I'm looking at is football stuff here, right?
Sure.
And so I guess let's start with Shedeur, because Shedeur's draft stock, according to some, is falling a little bit since the season ended.
Yeah.
Some folks are saying it's a weak quarterback class.
Yeah.
Cam Ward looks like he's going to go number 1 overall, and there's like Jackson Dart.
Sure. There's always one guy that you've never heard of, but yet for some reason scouts want to talk highly about. Well, even though, you know, Shedeur's
but those guys, you know, sometimes end up being good pros.
Sure.
They maybe didn't get all the hype in college, but they have all the intangibles and the height and the arm and all that. Jackson Dart is a guy whose parents named him Jackson with an X, which I don't feel too strongly about.
It's a cool name.
Jackson with an X?
Jackson Dart is a cool action hero name.
Yeah. Dart is good for a quarterback.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But so it's you never know, because a lot of teams will be saying those things, hoping that his reputation slides, and then they fall to him.
Well, what do you think are some of the reasons why they've said that Shedeur's stock has kind of fallen off since the end of the season? What could he have done?
Yeah. So good question. So a lot of it was about his swagger. He's a little too swaggy.
First of all, that's insane, because it'd be weird if he wasn't swaggy. He's the son of Deion frickin' Sanders. He better be swaggy.
Right. But so I think a legitimate question to ask in the face of that is like, is he doing that because that's his authentic self?
Sure.
Or is that because he's been conditioned to do that, and he's just had to because he's Coach Prime's son, and he's had to wear that hat when that might not be the real him? Is it bravado, or is it that how he really thinks?
Yeah. Like if we got him with some of that true serum, he'd be like, I just want to be a normal guy, guys.
Well, maybe he's going to be.
Yeah.
And maybe it's going to be the best thing ever for Shedeur to leave his father, go out on his own and develop his own thing.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I think that's always a great kind of to get out of the watchful eye of your father and coach.
Right.
You know?
And
prove to people that you can't play under someone else.
Yeah, and he does have to prove that, because he's never not played under his father.
Yeah.
In high school, at Jackson State, here at CU, he's always been coached by his dad.
Jackson State does not have an X in it.
That would be funny if they changed it.
Little 2-minute call back there.
Yeah, nice. And so it is going to be a challenge for him to develop that without his father around. If your dad is your coach and you're the quarterback,
sure,
and he has designs on you becoming the number 1 pick in the draft or an NFL quarterback, he's going to sort of cater his decision-making process, the personnel additions, to making sure you're protected and you're good.
Absolutely.
Or that at least you shine. Nowhere he goes in the NFL is going to care about that.
No.
They care about winning, and that's it, right? It's not about protecting you because you're my son. It's about protecting you because you're a quarterback, you're our asset. But we need to find a way to win football games.
Do you think that some of those people who have said that his stock has dropped since the season is over, do you think that some of those people know that some of these teams don't maybe want to take on the swagger and the circus known as the Sanders?
Yeah, maybe some.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe some. There's some old school football coach guys who are more like, you know, act like you've been there.
Bring your lunch pail.
Yeah, hand the ball to the ref, you know. But it's a new age. It's NIL. He's walking in as a millionaire, and money he's earned himself, not that daddy gave him, you know. So that's an unusual part of the landscape now, a reality that all these GMs and coaches are going to have to contend with. But it's not just with Shedeur. Most of the guys who are getting drafted are millionaires. Yeah, at least the first round guys from NIL money. So the draft stock falling thing, it's like the swagger, I think, a little bit. But there's also a comparison happening between he and Cam Ward, who's for people who went to both pro days and stuff, Cam Ward throws a better ball.
Sure.
It's a tighter spiral. And you saw a little bit of that with Shedeur at the showcase. It wasn't a tight, like there was a tail to the ball.
Sure.
it doesn't really zip out of his hands in the same way that it does with Cam Ward. Does that mean he's not going to be a good pro? No.
Right.
Like, it's rarely the strongest arm quarterbacks
Well,
or the
wasn't
best
that the whole
quarterbacks.
Cutler thing? That he just had an absolute
Exactly.
cannon for an arm.
Exactly. Cutler could throw the ball
And he had a good career, but he wasn't like the franchise quarterback.
Didn't live up to the expectations, right? And if you compared Jay and Jake was the better quarterback.
Yep.
And Jay threw a harder ball.
Sure.
And a lot of times the hard balls are harder to catch.
No,
like, you throw a friendly ball. Like, you have friendly balls, don't you?
Hey, I got friendly balls for days. Okay?
Right.
And I can start scratching them now with this hand. No.
Okay.
Yeah,
You
I couldn't move
all
it
right.
for a long time.
Oh, you couldn't even scratch your balls with that
I couldn't. I didn't want to move it. I was scared. I was
Wow.
babying it.
Okay, so it's better.
It's better.
Yeah, you definitely don't need surgery. If you can
That's
scratch
right.
your balls, you're
I'm
good.
I'm good.
So a lot of like the evaluation going into a draft is overblown.
Sure.
About trying to find the perfect prospect.
And what else I wanted to ask was, does he get a little bit of kudos for going out and passing to his guys? And
Of course.
Okay.
So absolutely. So he didn't need to do that.
Right.
He did that so his teammates, his brothers, could benefit from the hype
You said that before.
and the attention that he was going to get.
Yep.
You saw all those people who were at that CU at Pro Day. We're going to have BK on here in a couple minutes.
Yeah.
He's going to tell us about all the people he talked to and what they smelled like and all that. But like,
do you want to talk about the ball pat with him, or do you want to get into the ball pat? Because it's the ball pat heard around the world. right
Shedeur's ball pat.
Shedeur's
I
ball
thought you
pat,
were
not
talking
my
about your
ball
own
pat.
ball
No,
pat.
no. I don't pat them. They're gentle.
Yeah. So here's another thing that people are trying to knock Shedeur down a peg by. Obviously, when that stuff is aired, it's so prominent on social media. Everyone's seeing it.
I don't know if everyone saw what was going on,
he was
but can you
patting the
show
ball. Yeah. So before every throw, he's doing that. Boom, patting the ball. There's a lot of like quarterback fundamental guru people who tell you not to do that.
Sure.
But then you'll look at the tape, and Tom Brady would pat the ball, and Aaron Rodgers, some of the best quarterbacks ever, would pat the ball. Your throw is your throw. I'm not someone who's like tries to work on the mechanics of a quarterback much. Either you can throw or you can't.
Well,
there's certain things you can do to improve it. But like Tim Tebow came in here, he couldn't throw very well. He went through years and years of quarterback coaches trying to get him to throw better, and it didn't work. Like either by the time you're an NFL prospect,
I was gonna say the die is cast, right?
Yeah.
You already have your form. It's like I grew up with a lot of guys who had a bad shot form.
Yeah,
their jump shot was trash, but it might have went in.
Right.
And so if you're going into the pro days, I think you're not going to stop the ball pat. Maybe it's a small fix, but like it's just who he is.
Yeah.
I don't know really why they're overblowing this. I guess it's just because.
Well, I mean, there was a defensive back for the Jets, I believe, who tweeted about it, and he said something like, boy, better stop patting that ball. We're going to break on that early.
He's not going to see that.
Well, I mean,
as a DB,
how do you know? Have you played DB
in high school? I've played against like some really fast kids.
You were breaking on the pat.
Yeah. But it's one of those things. But shouldn't he be so busy with covering the route that he's not going to see the pat?
It's so bang there. You're like going to break on the pat.
Exactly.
Like, come on. So and then like Darius Slayton of the Giants chimed in and was like, "Dude, you can't even handle a 2-man dagger concept, which is like a 2-man route. One guy goes in and one guy." It's a 2-man route. The guy in the slot just takes the top off, and the guy on the outside does like a 15-yard in, and it just opens that field up right there.
And this is like, I think the issue with this when they're talking about the ball tap, and then we have video footage of Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers doing the ball pat.
Yeah,
like I want someone to tell me why it's not going to work for Shedeur, but it can work for them. But they can't. I think they just want to focus on something to kind of like add some narrative of like, why he might not go one, why not go
it's just the
two.
polarization and of the Coach Prime effect.
And
it's
that's
like
the thing, because
people who like want to watch him fail.
Yeah,
there's a lot of people who want Shedeur to fail.
Yes,
there's a lot of people who want Coach Prime to fail.
Yeah,
and when they don't, well,
I think it's very disingenuous when you can't focus on kind of the good things. Like he showed up for his guys on pro day.
He did.
He threw to them.
Yeah.
He also he got sacked more times than anybody and never complained. He also played his bowl game, which a lot of guys going to the pros didn't want to play.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things. I think he's proven that he kind of does all the right things, but they kind of want to focus on just something because of the Sanders effect.
Yeah.
The whole
agreed. And it's going to boil down to, I think, where he ends up getting drafted is going to be a huge determinant about how his career is going to go. Like, of course, he wants to go top 5. Of course, everyone does. That's more money, more prestige. But you end up being on a bad team, like a bad team.
Yeah.
And
you get the kind of the savior kind of role thrown on you.
Yeah.
At an early age.
And I think that's one of the things that kind of maybe rubbed some scouts wrong was in some interviews at the Combine, Shedeur said, like, I change cultures wherever I go.
Mm-hmm.
I've done it, and he said that multiple times. I've done it in high school. I did it at Jackson State. I did it here, and I'll do it wherever I end up going. I don't think if I'm a GM, a head coach, I'm not drafting a guy to come change my culture.
Sure.
Because that means I suck at my job. I haven't created a culture here. I'm leaving it up to you.
Yeah.
A rookie, a college kid to come in here and save my ass? No, I'm looking for a guy who's going to fit in with the culture I'm building.
Yeah.
And do his job.
But also, shouldn't you do whatever you can to create a culture? And if that is getting a culture-changing quarterback, shouldn't you draft that guy?
I mean, what does that mean?
I don't know what that means. I think I think when he says something like "I change cultures wherever I go," people are going to hear that as either cocky or just confidence. You know, it kind of just depends.
I think okay, if the context, I'm not sure about high school, but Jackson State, they go and take over a program that's diminished or it is not thriving. They make it thrive. They come to see you and do the same thing. That sort of imperative doesn't really exist in the NFL because everyone's sort of on the same playing field.
Sure.
Yes, there are teams that suck, but the salary cap, the free agency, the draft, there's parity in the NFL.
Yeah.
And all these teams are well-resourced, full of the best football players on planet Earth, divvied up 32 ways, full of the best coaches on planet Earth, conceivably. There are some bad coaches out there, but the players are pretty much the same talent-wise from team to team to team to team. So you're not going to a shitty team that you're just going to turn around because of your personality.
I get that.
The players are good everywhere. Okay, so that's what you have to contend with. And that's why, to me, like, I'm looking at this, this list of teams and the draft order, and by all accounts, the Tennessee Titans are maybe going to draft Cam Ward. And then after that, it could be the Browns for Shedeur. It could be the Giants. It could be, the Jets. All bad teams. Right. And then, it could be the Raiders even. That could be I think that could be a good place.
Where are they at? What number
They're at 6.
6. Okay.
I think that could be a good place for Shedeur. Pete Carroll, a successful coach, has had a ton of success in this league, has won a Super Bowl with Russell Wilson, who was kind of, wasn't asked to do a ton as a quarterback. He would go off because he was really talented, but they had a really strong defense and a commitment to the running game. And I think that's the type of team that Shedeur would be best served on, not a team like the Browns where it's just like, go win it for us, man. It's on you now.
Add our long laundry list of quarterback last names.
Right. Right.
I mean, it really is. They have that kind of history, but also it's funny what I'm about to say, falling to number 6. That's a hilarious thing to say.
Yeah.
But could you see him in a scenario I'll say falling to number 6 because everyone has him projected as 2 or 3.
I can see him falling to the end of the first round.
Really?
Because if you fall past like 6, then there's the Saints at 9 because they don't have a quarterback. But if the Saints don't draft you, the Bears aren't going to at 10. The Niners aren't going to at 11.
The Chiefs won't either.
Well, if they're smart. The Cowboys probably wouldn't, but that could be a wild card play if they didn't like Dak. But because there's some trade rumors with Dak.
So this could kind of be an Aaron Rodgers situation where he just drops all that way.
Right. To a team in the 20s who are in the teams in the 20s are what? They're playoff teams.
Yep.
They're good football teams. So I actually think for his career, it would be a good thing if he dropped to the back end of the first round, like the Steelers at 21, right? Is Aaron Rodgers going to end up in Pittsburgh for a year or two? If he does, Shedeur could sit behind him and learn from one of the best quarterbacks in the history of the game.
And a notorious ball patter.
Right.
Okay?
He pats
so many balls.
Yeah.
Gosh.
On and off the field.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And his darkness retreat.
Yeah,
too.
exactly.
Probably even more
What's
so
that
there.
sound? What's he doing in there?
Just won't stop.
And so I think a team like the Steelers, who are run by Mike Tomlin, who he's not asking someone to come change his culture.
Yeah. He's
the culture is established.
Yeah.
Don't put that pressure on yourself, young man. Come in here and just learn our system and be the best football player you can be.
Yep.
The culture stuff, your influence, your personality, that's going to take care of itself. But I think that Shedeur Sanders, the team he ends up on is really going to determine what kind of career he has.
I agree with that. It'd be very interesting to see his personality in the silver and black,
Yeah.
Raiders be
and
that'd be really kind of interesting.
And we get to see him twice a year.
It'd be a marketing dream for the NFL.
Still in our division here.
Yep.
The Broncos will still get to see him. And Sean Payton was out there. I mean, he was chopping it up with Coach Prime. Yeah, everyone was out there. And so want to talk about Travis Hunter as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because Travis Hunter, the Heisman Trophy winner, plays receiver, plays DB. where's he going to go?
Yeah,
and so there's words that he's going to go to the Browns at 2.
Mhm.
Well, how do you use Travis Hunter? I've heard that he sees himself as more of a receiver than a DB. But what I saw there at his pro day running routes and stuff is a guy who, and granted, this is running routes on air in your t-shirt with nobody around,
with your t-shirt on.
nobody covering you.
Yep.
Yeah. But I see a receiver who needs a lot of work on route running. And in the NFL, like you don't realize how deficient you are as a route runner until you get there and you see the skill levels of the DBs, their technical acumen. I played D3 receiver, right? Not what, and I didn't win the Heisman like
the
Travis.
Menlo Fighting Oaks, everybody.
Not fighting, just Oaks.
I like.
We didn't fight.
We didn't fight.
We just
good
stood
oaks.
strong.
Just good.
We had several oak trees on campus. Okay,
dirty oaks. I believe it.
Yeah. Good wood too.
Oh, great
build.
Wood. Great wood.
Yeah. Not as soft as poplar.
And if you have it was a popular line in Jerry Maguire. My words as salt as oak. That's always he went back on that though.
The Jerry Maguire guy? Or?
No, I remember it was what am I doing over here? It was Bo Bridges.
Oh yeah,
he was the main quarterback that he lost. Jerry O'Connell was that quarterback.
Yeah,
and he's like, my word's stronger than oak.
Yeah,
and he went back on it.
Damn it. Well, it was his dad who backed out on it.
His dad backed out on it, but still.
Well, there's a lot of that going on now too. Like
sure.
Like it's, as BK says, it's lying season, which it means everybody's lying about what their intentions are. Nobody wants to tip their hand, and so whoever does want to draft Travis, probably not saying it. A lot of speculation, but there's going to be a question as to what role he has on a team.
Yeah,
and I just know, like, so my point about playing receiver at a D3 level and then getting to the NFL, it wasn't a speed issue. It wasn't that I wasn't fast enough. It's that the moves that I used in college were not going to work in the NFL.
Yeah.
In college, I would just there would be a DB playing man coverage. I'll just move him out of the way and go run my route.
Yeah.
Well, you get to the NFL and these guys are a lot stronger.
Yeah.
They're a lot more technical. Their footwork is so much better. Their hand place is so much better. It takes some time to learn how to get off press, how to set guys up, how to run routes in a way that's can match the level of technique and intensity in the NFL. And as incredible of an athlete and as a football player as Travis Hunter is, there will be a learning curve.
Yeah, I was gonna say, even though he is the Heisman Trophy winner, that doesn't mean that he's just NFL ready. He does.
There's
have
been plenty of Heisman Trophy winners that have taken a dump.
Yeah, or just not even got drafted. Charlie Ward.
Wow.
Yeah. But it's one of those things, like, even though he's Heisman, he's got a lot to learn, like you just said.
Yeah.
If he went to whatever team he goes to, do you think he is more NFL ready to be a wide receiver or an NFL ready DB?
Yeah, I think he's more ready to be a DB right now.
Yeah.
And if I was a team, I would draft him to be a DB and then kind of see how as we go, we'll try to fit him in at receiver.
Yeah.
There's a lot to think about if you want to play him both ways. And I know Coach Prime is saying, you're crazy if you don't play this guy both ways the entire time. But, it's doubling the number of plays you're out there.
Sure.
So to me, it's shortening your career considerably.
Yeah.
How long do you want to play? I mean, do you want to play both ways for 8 years and then be done? Or do you want to play DB for 15 and make a lot more money,
a load of money,
and be a little bit healthier and have a better chance of, winning Super Bowls and being around for long enough to secure a legacy.
Also, let's say if he's a starting DB in this league and then he does like the 15 to 20 plays on offense in a game, does he get kind of keyed on because he's now in the game, or is he a decoy, or is he what does that do to kind of the offense if he's out there a quarter of the time? I guess.
I mean, conceivably it gives the offense quite an advantage to just put him out there just from the attention that he brings.
Sure.
So we had Champ Bailey as a full-time cornerback, and 1 year coach put in a package for him to play receiver.
Yeah.
Champ did that in college and had, a ton of all-purpose yards. He was returning kicks, he was catching passes, and he was a DB. One of the best athletes that's ever stepped foot on an NFL field. He's I know Patrick Mahomes. I didn't say Patrick Mahomes.
I was about to get mad. But also, you didn't include me on there. Didn't include me on there. I told you I just played high school football. What are you doing?
What position did you play?
I mean, well, defensive back and wide receiver.
Oh, cool.
But
So you played both ways.
I was also long snapper.
Oh.
I played very 1A football. Okay, everyone had to play.
Nice.
Iron Man football, baby.
Iron Man.
Yeah.
Was it 8-on-8? Was it 8-man?
It was still 11-man, but it was pretty low level.
Yeah. Well,
A bunch of farm kids running around.
yeah. Well, Champ Bailey was not low level.
Nope, he was not.
He was the opposite of that. And so Champ, I was a receiver the year that Champ also came into our receiver room, and there was a certain package they had for Champ. And so Champ would come in, like you said, for 5 or 10 plays in a game.
Yeah.
And for an intelligent play caller and play designer, it can create some opportunities to, yes, like you said, decoys. Yeah, sure, we want to throw Travis the ball, but we also want you to think we're throwing Travis the ball.
You can't just go to him every time
Right.
because then they're just going to key on that.
I mean, similar to, if you watch the Broncos games last year, you saw this package they put in for Marvin Mims to be in the backfield.
Mhm.
It was something that he had not done before. It was something that was new for people. And when a team sees that, now they have to react to it. But not only that, once you put it on film, your next opponent has to study that film and create a package to stop that thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so that you give them extra work. And then you build a wrinkle on top of that package. And so the next opponent that has been studying that one package, you put a wrinkle on that, and then you show them they haven't seen, and you surprise them. And then the next opponent has to study both of those things, the wrinkle. And so that's the effect that it has for a play caller, being able to fuck with your opponent.
Sure.
Basically. And so Travis Hunter as a receiver would allow you to do that.
Yeah.
That said, you have to be confident that he can handle the load mentally, physically.
Well, yeah.
And this is one thing I keep talking about. Let me make one more point about this, is that every day when you're an NFL football player, you spend about 4 hours in the meeting room and you go over a lot of stuff. Some of it seems pointless. Some of it ends up being important. You never really know which is going to be important or pointless until the games happen and the situation arises. If you have a guy playing 2 positions, you're going to have to split his time in the meetings.
Yep.
So, is it one day he's here and one day he's there, or is it 2 hours here, 2 hours there? Whatever it is, he's going to miss some stuff.
Yeah.
He's going to miss some stuff with his receivers. He's going to miss some stuff with the DBs.
Yeah.
And so it's going to create it's going to create an organizational imperative to not let that stuff slip through the cracks.
Yeah.
He's going to have to stay at the facility longer. He's going to have to come earlier. Do you want to burn him out? Are you risking burning him out by asking him to do more like that? He's a rookie. He's already dealing with a bunch of stuff. He's a Heisman Trophy winner. He's going to be a top 5 pick. Do you want to put all that on his plate right away?
Yeah.
I think that's a question that all these guys are asking themselves right now.
Yeah, there's never really been like the reverse dynamic where a guy plays full-time offense and then just goes and plays a little bit of defense here and there,
No.
There's never been that. So, yeah, I get that. Makes all the sense in the world that he's going to miss some stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I feel like if they do or I say whoever he gets drafted to, it's one of those things where they just got to kind of like utilize them as best as they can.
Yeah. Well, speaking of utilizing people
Yeah.
as best as we can, we've got our very own Brandon Krisztal. How are you, man?
Good. It's been a weird, busier day than I was anticipating.
Yeah. So Nuggets firing their head coach.
And GM.
Yeah, and GM.
I'll throw a name that I bet you guys get excited about just as well. I know you're a big Hoops fan.
Yeah.
But the name that I threw out there and Liv loved, and she actually, I think, threw it out there first. How about the King of Park Hill?
Oh, Chauncey.
Chauncey coming home.
Chauncey.
At best, you would be the Prince or the
I don't
Joker.
have time to do that right now. Chauncey Billups, that'd be pretty incredible.
His contract is.
Where's he at right now?
He's in Portland.
Okay.
They were close to firing him last year. They let him play out the last year, coach this last year, but they had him take his brother off his staff. Kind of one of those, like, do some reorganizing. If you get it going, maybe we'll extend you. They have a team option, but I reached out to people very close to the situation, and they think that Chauncey could get out of that team option and then potentially come here if that was the direction that they wanted to go.
Is he a good coach? Is he put like
they play hard?
Yeah,
and so
they play hard.
But in the NBA, that's something that's noticeable. They only have one good player, and he's not even there yet. The Scoot Henderson kid, really. So could be fun, and he's as big a Broncos fan as any of us know. I mean, that guy. When they were playing the Chargers that Thursday night, when we did the big watch along, and we had the Nuggets, Avs.
Yeah.
Well, the Nuggets were in Portland that night, and that was where the Broncos were up 21-0. And I texted him, and I'm like, "Are you watching this game in your office?" He's like, "You're damn right." Then he goes out.
Well, you texted.
I texted Chauncey.
Oh, then why don't you text him right now and ask him?
Well, he's in the middle of a season.
Live on off.
Come on, man.
Well, because we got to talk about his other favorite team, the Buffs.
Yeah.
At least, and those guys. But I talking to some people very, very close to the situation. I wouldn't be surprised if offered if Chauncey took it here, and I know that he would be excited. Was the sense I got.
Yeah, he knows the lay of the land. He'd know where he wants to lay down roots.
He's already got a house.
Does he?
Yeah, they kept their house.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
have you ever? I mean, to kind of piggyback on what happened today with the Nuggets a little bit. Have you ever seen a football team fire their head coach and GM a week or two before playoffs when they're playoff teams?
And they're in the play. Yeah, that's the wildest part. That's the wildest part.
Yeah.
We've definitely seen the craziest thing that I think comes to mind, and this isn't the timing right, but the Cowboys and Jerry moving on from Jimmy Johnson was kind of the craziest. They had just won a second Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And he's like, I could get Barry Switzer to coach this team and he'd win a championship. Turns out he was right on that, but that was because of the team Jimmy built.
Yeah.
But that certainly didn't happen right before the playoffs. I can't think of a coach being fired that close to the playoffs ever.
Yeah.
GMs here and there, but even when GMs get fired, it's not on the heels of right on the doorstep of the playoffs.
Maybe it kind of has like a reputation of if you win coach of the year, that's not a good thing.
Sure.
You have one more year basically.
Yeah. And, we saw where the Grizzlies just fired their coach a couple weeks ago, but they had been reeling. The John Morant thing is hard to kind of wrap your arms around, and maybe you just needed a new voice, but they're still a playoff team. This is the latest that's happened for a playoff team, I think, since Hubie Brown got fired by the Knicks in like the early 80s or whatever.
So the interim head coach is Attenborough. Is that
David Adelman?
David Attenborough.
Who's Attenborough?
Richard?
Oh, that's the guy who does
Attenborough,
the wildlife videos.
Yeah, exactly.
He's gonna do narration for the team.
That would be awesome if he was the
That'd be
coach.
great.
I'd at least watch the press conference and be excited. David Adelman, who is Rick Adelman's son. Rick Adelman coaches good Blazers teams back in the day, and so he's grown up in basketball locker rooms similar to Michael Malone, who's dad coach forever, but younger voice, new voice, and maybe the thought is
he going to get a shot at being the head coach? I've heard talk about him being a potential rising star in the coaching field who could get an opportunity elsewhere. Do you think they might have fired him knowing that they want to give him that shot?
Maybe, and you have to think, we know that the NBA is a star-driven league far more than the NFL, other than when you're Aaron Rodgers and can control things the way he has, but that doesn't happen very often. I suppose if Patrick Mahomes got sideways with Andy Reid, he could probably go up, and Joe Burrow probably could go up to, to their owners.
Pat could not get Andy Reid fired.
No.
You wouldn't think, but
No way. He wouldn't want to either.
Dude, people from Kansas City everywhere like this guy have mustaches because of Andy Reid.
Yeah, that's right. That marriage is stronger than him and Britney's, okay?
That might be true. That might be true. I'm just saying the people that have the juice in the NFL, it's much more limited versus.
Do you think Bo Nix could get Sean Payton fired?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Talk to me in a few years.
Yeah. 2 years.
Well, with apologies to Peyton Manning, who's the best coach the best quarterback in the history of the team.
The Broncos?
Yeah.
It's Elway.
And why do you think Dan Reeves got fired? It wasn't it wasn't because Mr. B was like, you know what, I think it's time to move on from Coach Reeves. He's only taken us to a few Super Bowls.
Yeah.
It was I think number 7 was the message wasn't getting through.
Well, so clearly Nikola Jokic probably had something to do with
he was at least, I think, involved. And maybe he just acknowledges that the message was stale, or the messenger was stale in this case, because every coach wants you to play hard and play defense. But when Malone says he can't even get his guys to watch film, and Joker's saying we're not a very good team right now, and tell me if you think that this is just weird. Stan Kroenke, who's almost never seen at Nuggets games because he's either up in his suite or he's in LA or wherever, because Josh runs the team. Stan's obviously the owner, but Josh is the governor of the team or whatever, and Josh is here a lot. That Lakers game a few Fridays ago, when no LeBron, no Luka, Stan sat at the end of the bench, on the bench for the whole game, which I've covered this team 18, 19 years. I don't think I've ever seen, you'll see Stan.
Like the Mark Cuban kind of spot.
Yeah, Cuban did it all the time.
Yeah.
So that wasn't weird. Owners, sometimes they'll come down. They'll sit. We see those Timberwolves, as A-Rod was trying to figure it out, and the other owner, Glenn Taylor, and A-Rod's partner. So there's a chance he's sitting there, no LeBron, no Luka. Austin Reeves is going nuts. And he's just seeing the way the team's interacting as close as possible. And you know how it is when you're in a game. You're not necessarily paying attention to everything. So there's a chance that the 8 guys or 9 guys that were playing weren't even really thinking about Stan over there.
Yeah.
And so
the danger here, though, is that you react aggressively to what might have been just a lull or a downswing, and then you end up squandering the sweet spot of Nikola Jokic by hiring maybe a Josh McDaniels type who fucks things up, right? Because I think about Mike Shanahan and when he got fired, like he had such a successful career here, a couple off years with a couple off moments where we lost it late, and then someone gets in the owner's ear and is like, you got to make this move. And he makes the move. And in hindsight, it might've been better to ride it out.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if what you're saying is true, Brandon, that he can't get his own players to watch film, that's a huge problem.
Huge problem.
And it's like, how do you lose your team that bad, Brandon? How do you lose your team that bad where you can't get those guys to watch film?
Well, I think that this didn't happen in a vacuum. So Stan being there may have just accelerated the conversation, but they're around these guys enough. And to say that they have spies in the locker room isn't accurate, but there's enough people in and out of the locker room that certainly Josh and by extension Stan can talk to people and get a sense of everything. But Josh knows that in order for this team to win more championships, they have to be good with Joker. So odds are Josh and Joker have been talking about this probably leading up to today. And maybe today was just the right timing or whatever in their mind. But Joker acknowledging, because I don't know if Joker's knocking on the door saying, hey, this message is stale. But I think if Josh is going to him and saying, hey, is he really getting through to you guys? Because it doesn't seem like it. You certainly seem frustrated, understandably. He's saying he can't even get your teammates on the same page. What do you think if we start to go in a different direction?
Yeah.
And odds are that conversation's happened more than once in terms of where maybe they might go. Because you saw the way Joker played for the Serbian coach.
Yeah.
If you watch that Run to Gold,
Yeah.
Is that what that documentary was called? I think
Something like that.
on Netflix. It's really good. That followed them, and it followed the French team, it followed the U.S. team in the Olympics this past summer. And I don't think you're going to hire that dude. But you see that Joker can respond to other coaches beyond just Michael Malone. And
it's also Joker responding to like playing alongside his countrymen.
It's all 100%.
Like, yeah,
he loves those dudes.
Yeah,
they got third place and they partied like they won. The Super Bowl.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
But the thing is, also, this next 2 weeks are going to tell basically every Nuggets fan what to expect during the playoffs.
Yeah,
I mean, if they rally around whoever the interim coach is, I'm guessing it's one of Malone's assistants.
Yeah, Adelberg.
Oh yeah, sorry. That will tell you basically what's going to happen.
Richard
David
Attenborough. It's Dick Attenborough.
Dick
Attenborough. But and Adelman has David Adelman has filled in. He when Malone stayed to watch his daughter in the volleyball state playoffs, he filled in on that Friday. And I think that Malone flew and coached Sunday when they lost in Memphis because the games were Thursday, Saturday. But Adelman is respected. He ran their summer league a couple of years ago. Yeah. Every year they change up, not just them. Every team will get a different coach to run summer league just so they can get that experience of being the head coach. But Adelman did it and it was well received, well liked. So,
well, we saw this with Antonio Pierce with the Raiders, right? They rallied around him. They were actually the year before they rallied around their special teams coach.
Yeah, right? Well, Bisaccia, he's into the playoffs.
Yeah. And so it's one of those things I bet you can see like a really rejuvenated kind of team after this. But also, you fire the coach, you fire the GM, and I'm talking about all sports. You kind of better get the interim right away. You know, if you're just playing for another Mike Malone kind of clone, then they probably might not respect him and not want to still watch film.
But you also have to respect the success that he had. Isn't he the winningest coach?
Absolutely.
History? Yeah, 2 years ago won a title, and now he's gone. Just shows
so they're going to probably think that's more players than coach at that point.
Well, it shows you how fickle it is. Yeah. Like, you know, it's just the way now, man.
But so if they bounce back and not only play well in these final 3 games, you know, and don't have to play in the play-in tournament, but Adelman then takes them on a second, third round, trip to the finals, you're gonna have to really consider that, okay, his message is getting through, because this is beyond, we moved on from Malone and we were just over him to, okay, whatever Adelman's doing is now working.
Yeah.
If that works. But if not, then you certainly let him be a candidate and anyone else on the staff that you think might have a future. But you're opening it up to every great coach that's available, and even trying to find out, could you get Chauncey if he can, get the Blazers to not pick up that option, what that ends up looking like on that list. And I'll throw the one GM name that has to interest people that's out there is Bob Myers. Walked away from the Warriors after building a championship dynasty.
He's been on
TV for a little while. But
TV sucks, so get me out of here, like Sean Payton did.
Yeah, but getting a chance to build a team around the best player in the world in his prime, because he saw the writing on the wall. Steph's playing awesome right now, but Steph's years are numbered, whereas Joker's,
and you're losing dudes too.
Yeah, and he knew he was going to have to move on from Klay Thompson and at some point maybe move on from Draymond. Now he didn't have to be the guy that fired any of those guys.
But then they got Jimmy Butler, and now they're looking pretty good, right?
Warriors will be a tough out. But I'm just saying, Bob Myers, to me, has to be the first guy getting a call from Josh Kroenke to run the team.
Well, we'll be paying attention to off court to see what happens there.
Let's get back to off field.
Let's get back to football. The ball pat heard around the world at the CU NFL showcase. What can you tell us about the scene there?
It was awesome. To say it was wild is unfair, because that's what Georgia and Alabama's pro days kind of look like anyway. They may not have the word showcase, and you may not have as many bigger named people there in terms of media types that came or whatever it was, but there's 500 people at Alabama's pro day, at Georgia's pro day. Talk to your old teammate Champ Bailey.
Yeah,
this must be what Georgia's pro day is like. He's like, yeah, but this is exactly what I expected with Deion when Prime got here. And so they're gonna they're not gonna have a Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders in next year's draft, but they're gonna have to just keep restocking it. And this could become a bit of an annual spectacle. But it was in some ways a spectacle in a positive way because there wasn't much that happened. You had the guys run the 40s, and Shiloh was faster than people thought. Not that he was fast. You didn't even know going into the day until we found out in the morning that Travis Hunter was going to do anything.
He's probably the fastest Shiloh in the draft. I'll just say that.
Yeah. Although I haven't checked. And then you had Shedeur kind of on the money with just about every throw. The Pat was interesting because I was standing near Sean Payton and I heard somebody kind of ask him about it, but he didn't seem to be bothered by it. I asked Sean just, hey, what do you think about Travis going out there no gloves?
Yeah.
And he's like, I like it. So it doesn't matter.
I like it. Why did he like? Why does he like it?
I think
he has confidence in his hands.
Yeah, soft hands. Because when I asked Champ about it, I said, "When's the last time you didn't wear gloves?" He said, "High school, because I couldn't afford them." But you just wear gloves. It's what you do with that position. And you can see the quick twitch movement. Andrew Berry was there, Jimmy Haslam, the owner, and Kevin Stefanski, as well as a bunch of their staff. They took Shedeur and Travis to dinner the night before, and I got to talk to both Kevin and Andrew. It helps that our pal Shelby Harris, that's their boss, and or his boss, and Andrew Berry's a big Shelby Harris fan, as he's told me now a few times. But they said those guys were great at dinner. Really liked both of them. It does feel like Travis to Cleveland is getting stronger vibes. But the Shedeur Pat thing, they say, oh, that he's going to throw it after he pats it. Well, he can still pump fake. He doesn't have to let go of the ball. I think that's dumb.
And it's like it's just
shit's happening.
It's propelling his hand into the throw.
Right?
He's not patting and then waiting. It's kind of like a one motion thing.
Yeah.
So it's actually propelling the ball back and maybe actually adding some torque to his throw and allowing him to get some more zip on it. Who knows?
I just don't think that of all the chaos that's happening in play, guys are going to see him pat the ball and then know where he's going with it. I think it's just kind of it's a red herring for these narratives.
Yeah. Well, yeah, if you want to say, oh, he can't do it at the next level, I understand that college football is not the NFL. And the Pac-12 last year, although there were 6, pretty good teams, and the Big 12 this year aren't NFL defenses and NFL defensive coordinators. But you don't complete 70% of your passes on accident. I know your pass catchers have something to do with it, but there's a level of accuracy there. Josh Allen, the NFL MVP, the one thing he was accused of was not being accurate. We understand it's windy as hell up in Wyoming. He's got a big arm and he's going to miss here and there. But he was in the mid-50s his 2 years there, or his last 2 years at Wyoming, and he was really ripping it. Shedeur completed 70%. So patting the ball or not, it worked.
And regardless of where he goes, Shedeur's receivers get better, compared to.
They will, but so will the DBs. And the defense gets a whole lot better.
Yeah.
I think proportionate, like the defense is going to get better than his receivers are going to get.
Sure.
So it's going to be harder for him to do as well, but it's going to be harder for every college quarterback to do as well in the NFL as they did in college. But the completion percentage that Shedeur had, a lot of it was based on the system. They're going 4 wide, and they throw the ball short constantly, and that's basically. But that's what they do in the NFL. It's not a knock against him that he had a high completion percentage. It's just indicative of the system they ran. And what about, because I was watching it on TV and Baldy and those guys.
Did you see me at any point?
I didn't.
Back there?
Did you get to see a Baldy breakdown?
Baldy was down on the sideline with a mic. You didn't really see a lot of him.
I should have worn this.
They were cutting to him, to his
it's called
words.
Branding, Brandon. Okay?
No. I was wearing a gorilla shirt, but it was black, so it kind of just blended in with it.
Yeah,
I should have worn a black
shirt.
And it wasn't like I was going to a game. Not that I didn't go to see you, but I like it when the Buffs win.
Several of them, I think it was Bucky Brooks or whatever who's commenting on it, or no, it was the other guy.
Well, Steve Weish was there. Oh no, Steve Weish was with Baldy. Did they have a third guy?
No, there was 3 guys in the booth, and then they were cutting to Baldy. 2 of the guys mentioned that Shedeur had a tail to his ball, and it wasn't really coming out as hot as Cam Ward, and that there was a little bit of a tail to he wasn't throwing spirals, they were saying. What did you see?
I saw spirals, and I get that I was right there, and I wasn't on camera analyzing it, and so I'm behind the play because I wasn't necessarily where I was supposed to be. I wasn't necessarily supposed to be standing right.
You don't need a spiral, like you don't need to throw a spiral for it to be complete. And a lot of times the prettiness of the ball, not imperative for being a good quarterback. Yeah. Some quarterbacks are just, their ball always has a little bit of a tail, but it's always there on time. It's a friendly ball to catch.
Did Peyton Manning's?
Yeah, Peyton wasn't, he didn't throw the prettiest balls in in the world. He didn't have the prettiest balls. Peyton Manning's balls weren't that pretty, but he was a
Going
really
viral.
good player. I mean, he got the wins. He understood what he was looking at. He knew how to read defenses. He knew how to get his players in the right position. That's what playing quarterback is about.
Yeah.
Not how tight your balls are.
And
Well, speaking of Shedeur, oh yeah, go ahead.
no, I was going to say, are we going to look at the teams where Shedeur could go?
That's what I was
We
about
were
to ask,
talking
because we
about that
talked about that
earlier, yeah.
earlier. He kind of would. We had this kind of a juicy scenario of him being drafted at 6 to the Raiders. Just kind of a marketing wise, just how they look, plus also their immediate time to play, staying in the division.
Pete Carroll factor.
Where do you see Shedeur going, or where do you think would be a good fit? I should say.
Well, the Giants are interesting because we know that there's a tie there. Not a tie, but like he and Malik Neighbors got to know each other Heisman week. He had the Giants cleats made up that he had at the bowl game that he warmed up in. I think that was maybe just for fun. Or to say I'd love to be in New York. He has a tie to Tom Brady as well, knowing Tom for a lot of years, being one of the few people. And I don't know if the Brady brand is still a thing, but last year when it was, he was an NIL athlete.
Yeah.
So Tom Brady's company was paying Shedeur.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. And so, I mean, he was on the commercials and on the print ads. And so if Tom Brady signs off on him, there's a chance that the Geno thing is more Pete Carroll and Tom just saying, okay, yeah, it's fine. Not a lot of guaranteed money there. Not a lot of guaranteed money with Russ and Jameis. If you do decide to get Shedeur, Dayball and Joe Shane are probably looking at it like best of both worlds. We're going to win some games this year with these older dudes.
Sure.
And if Shedeur beats them out, then great, whatever. It's not costing us a lot of money, but we need to keep our jobs. So Shedeur will have beaten them out, but that's at least setting us up for, if we do keep our jobs, we know we're not going to have Russ for 5 years. We know we're not going to have Jameis for 5 years. Same with the Raiders. Geno's deal isn't too cost prohibitive. And we saw last year, the Falcons gave $90 million guaranteed dollars to Kirk Cousins and still went and got a quarterback. And so 3 and 6 make a lot of sense. It feels like the Jets aren't going to look at Shedeur, although you could make the case that might work too. And then 9 to the Saints. If not, it feels like Steelers and Rams are the next two teams.
You mentioned that, just dropping that.
Yeah, because those 9 or 10 through 20, they don't really need quarterbacks, right? And then you get to the Steelers at 21. And I think he would be great in a Steelers uniform because of the culture already established, because of the defensive emphasis, because of the emphasis on running the football. It's never good when you put a lot on a rookie quarterback and ask him to go win in games.
Yeah.
It's never going to work out. And a lot of times it destroys him, going forward.
On bad teams, typically. Although I guess we saw 2 exceptions this year, firsthand with us becoming Believers and what Jane Daniels did. But those tend to be outliers.
But Bo really benefited from the strength of this defense. This was like a top 5 defense in almost every metric, scored a ton of points, had some big picks and turnovers, and led the league in sacks. That's why Bo was able to have some of the success he had. They wouldn't have won 10 games without the defense playing that well. But you're right. I mean, it's the right combination with the right coach and the right vision for what you are. And, if he goes to Cleveland, for example,
I think Kevin's a good coach, but the
organization, it's just like
it's
just like graveyard for quarterbacks.
Oh, absolutely.
For first round quarterbacks.
It feels like they're going to they'll draft Travis Hunter and then try to pry Kirk Cousins away from the Falcons at a reasonable price. I don't know.
The Browns?
Yeah, the Browns, because Stefanski and Cousins obviously worked together for a bunch of years in Minnesota. And so there's a familiarity there. You're not going to owe as much money as the Falcons are going to owe him, essentially. Even though in the trade, I guess you have to just kind of rework the contract some. But in an actual trade, that way it's beneficial for the Browns. We do it after the draft or in the middle of the draft. But that feels like the way they're going, knowing that Watson had a setback and I guess retors a killer, whatever he did.
The crappy thing about Watson when he gets injured again is nobody wants to give him a massage.
No.
It's like, what are you doing, man?
It's got to be dudes.
Are you going camping? What is with that tent?
Goodell
Goodell
was asked that at the owners' meetings. Like, in addition to like a couple Justin Tucker questions, somebody said, "Are you going to mandate that the players only use team, certified therapists, masseuses, I think just across the board?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "Yeah, it's in the CBA. We can't."
Yeah, you can't tell a human being where you can't get a massage.
No. Although in a world of player empowerment that we've seen in the last 10, 15, 20 years, but especially more so in the NFL from where it was, say, compared to the NBA that's had it longer, we know that they've been able to bring more into the facility, but the players are going to go and do what they want, including with medical. Because I remember Brandon Marshall, the receiver, your old teammate, had issues with the Broncos doctors. Lots of teams, they were just in fear. But now the money's gotten so big
Yeah.
that second and third opinion.
Yeah,
it-
you're
Well, Robert Kraft doesn't want an NFL masseuse. Okay.
NFL certified.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, it's still certified. Don't get me wrong.
do you put it in your window like how the health department has the A or a B?
Maybe.
Yeah, you'd be like NFL certified masseuse, but then people will probably forge it.
Yeah. Let's say.
So I heard about a possible, just a hypothetical scenario that I want to relay to you on one of the radio stations in town, positing about the Browns. What if the Browns drafted Travis at 2, and then into the teens, there was Shedeur was still on the board, and they decided to target him and trade the Broncos, get the Broncos 21 pick, or I'm sorry, 20 picks, so they can get Shedeur, and then the Broncos could amass some picks from the Cleveland Browns. How would you feel about that?
I think if one of those picks was their first pick of the second round, and maybe next year's second rounder, because you got to make the points make sense. And so if you pull up that points chart that all the teams use, you're probably not getting their first rounder next year as part of that. But you might, when teams, that's what Sean Payton did to get Marcus Davenport, the D lineman from UTEP a couple years ago. He traded next year's first rounder, knowing that he'd be in the playoffs anyway, to get to like 16 to get Marcus Davenport from wherever they were in the 20s. It's funny that you say that, because I've not only heard about the Browns, but that seems more than feasible. And that's why they're waiting until after the draft to make a move on Kirk Cousins and vice versa. And maybe it happens, by day 2 of the draft, I guess. But after the first round, the Giants potentially doing the same thing. If Travis Hunter somehow fell to 3, but you would need Abdul Carter to go 2 to the Browns in that scenario, that they would try to do the same thing and get Travis at 3, and then trade into the 20 with the Broncos or somewhere in the teens, and try to get Shedeur and Travis that way. The Browns are better positioned to do it because they pick 2, so they don't have to worry about anything else happening. And the second they draft Travis Hunter, they can get on the phone to every team in the teens and say, hey, or whatever, from 15 on, wherever you want to do it. And they probably even talked about it with some of them before they get to the draft as we get a little closer, because that's the calls that teams make, is GMs will call GMs, or if you know a guy that's in personnel that used to work with you or work for you, you reach out and say, hey, can you put this in your GM's ear? Like, we're going to be calling if this plays out.
Yeah.
Where do you think would be the best landing spot for Travis?
Broncos.
That would be pretty cool, man. He could play both ways. Fills a need.
Yeah.
Move
Hometown hero.
Riley Moss inside, compete with Jaquan McMillan there. They need a receiver, a playmaking receiver. Hey, man, you never know.
And he came out again, in recent days saying he wants to play both ways all game. But you can want a lot of things. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. It does feel like he's going to start his career more on the receiver side and work corner in. Because
why does it feel that?
Because, well, one, if the Browns take him, Andrew Berry already said that at the combine. But even talking to Champ the other day, and Champ was squarely on he should be a corner because Champ's a corner. Champ has now changed his tune to he should be a receiver and then figure out how to work in
why
corner
is he
packages.
doing that?
Because the hardest thing to do is put the ball in the end zone. The best non-quarterback in the league, salary-wise, highest paid, Jamar Chase, does the hardest thing, and that's put the ball in the end zone. So $40 million are your top receivers now, 35 to 40, 30 to 40 even, and your top corner still only at 24, 25 million. I know it shouldn't matter because you can cut down half the
only
field.
24, 25, man.
And it's not dependent.
Those poor guys.
That's
I
one
didn't
thing
get up for 26 million.
But that's
Yeah,
the one thing
exactly.
Champ said. Corner's not dependent. You can just affect the game. You can totally shut down the field.
Yeah.
You can still go make a play in the run game. You can make a play on a loose ball.
Yeah.
Receiver, even if you're the best receiver in the world, if you've got a crappy quarterback. But
Do you see any team just taking him solely as a wide receiver or solely as a DB?
When I'm looking at him, I think he's a more polished DB, and I think that he has a lot more to learn. The learning curve is going to be steeper as a receiver. So if he goes in and he's like, I'm going to be a receiver, I think that could be more problematic if I'm running the team than him starting off at DB. But it's also about what you need, what you want, how you see your team. Travis is an inexperienced receiver, I think. I mean, I think that when it comes to just all the things you have to learn about route running and obviously at being a DB, he knows about coverage. He knows about how DBs play receivers. So he has that advantage, like knowing how guys are going to play him.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think that he has, his learning curve, like I said, with the receivers is steeper, and the route running is going to come along. There's a lot of routes he's never run before. He's going to have to learn. And like I was saying earlier in the show, the technique of these guys covering him are far superior than what he saw in college. And so it'll be really interesting to see how they use him.
If you use the Browns as an example, and the Browns, maybe I'm drawing a blank, don't really have a number one receiver that blows you away.
Jerry Jeudy.
Oh, okay.
Come on, man.
Okay, you're right. The Pro Bowler Jerry Jeudy.
Such
You're right.
slander
They do have
over
Jerry
here.
Jeudy.
Come on, man.
Because I was thinking about they traded Amari Cooper. They got all those other guys whose names I don't remember. But you got Jerry Jeudy. You got Njoku back. You do have Denzel Ward on the other side. So Travis Hunter can spend a lot of time working against Denzel Ward.
Yeah.
And then also in meetings with Denzel Ward. I think that's what it's going to take, like we've talked about, is whichever side is his more predominant side to start. It's going to take not only coaches, but also like the defensive captain type. So if you're in Denver, PS2 is going to have to sit in those meetings, or even one of your safeties also. It's just going to add to their week. But he's committed to spending his Mondays and Tuesdays in the building and trying to play both sides
Every day.
As far as best fit, it feels like he's going to Cleveland. Mike Vrabel's a hell of a coach. We think Drake May can play a little bit. You got Steph Diggs for better or worse. So that's a frontline receiver.
Yeah.
They spent a bunch of money, and Josh McDaniels is there to get creative with the offense. But with Drake May, if he were to fall to 4, and I don't think he will, that of the top 4 is the best fit. The Giants, other than Malik Neighbors and the running back Tracy, was a little, turned out to be solid. There's nothing that excites you. And on defense, they've got some pass rushers, but they're not great on the back end. And so if you end up there, then doing it, and we know he's not going to the Titans because it feels like they're taking Cam Ward.
Well, it's just a couple weeks away now. We'll know in a couple weeks now. Any other players other than Travis and Shedeur make a name for themselves or jump off the screen, so to speak, at the pro day?
Well, I don't know if it's necessarily at the pro day, although Jimmy Horn Jr. looked the best of the route runners. I'm guessing that's what you saw on TV. Yeah. But LeJontay Wester, I think, is more interesting because he's got a suddenness that will work perfectly in the slot, and also he's a stud returner, and he's the best returner in the draft. Talking to people that
there's some mock drafts that have him as high as the second round,
really?
possibly as deep as the 6th, though. Well, it's kind of
you never know.
It's a big range.
And so, but he's a guy that can come in, and I talked to one high-ranking NFL official that was there the other day, and they're like, he may not get drafted that high, but he's going to come in and make a roster, and he'll be playing in week 1 as a returner and probably as your 4th or 5th receiver. That's the thing too about where Travis goes, because they only have Jerry Jeudy in Cleveland, he would have to play more offense. Mm-hmm. If he ended up somewhere that had a little bit deeper receiver room, then you can just rotate him in more easily than you would be forced to in a team with a back.
There's also the health factor, because he got banged up a little bit his last couple of years in college and had to deal with that, because when you're playing over 100 plays a game, you're playing over 100 plays in the game in the NFL, those guys they hit harder, they're stronger, you're older, it's not as resilient. Like, that's going to catch up. I hope not, but any coach and GM's got to be reticent of the play count affecting his longevity. If you're making an investment like that, you don't want him to be done in 8 years.
Yeah.
Any non-receiver players that made an impression?
I'm drawing a blank on his name, and it was funny because I was standing with voice of the Buffs, Mark Johnson, and I don't think because I agreed with him that I would be in the same boat. But there's a lineman that ran shirtless, and he's like, we don't need to see linemen running shirtless. He's like, you don't need to see me running shirtless either. I'm like, yeah, me either.
Well,
I get
drag,
yeah.
You're trying to take.
Well, and so, but then the dude ran like a 5'3", and I'm like, okay, well, I guess taking the shirt off
would have been a 5'4".
Yeah. So, the lineman running that fast. Whenever you see a lineman that's closer to 5 than to 6, that's gonna, I think, take turn heads a little. But the day, for as good as those other guys might end up being, or contributing or being on rosters, and Shiloh running sub 4.6, which is at least more interesting because he's in the box safety, Buda Baker type. I don't think he's that fast, but under sub 4.6, you're like, okay, that's actually realistic NFL box safety speed versus I thought he was going to run like a 4.71 or something. So I don't think he gets drafted, but I think the team that signs him, that drafts Shedeur and signs him, will feel better about it. Yeah, that's my guess. That is, maybe he's a 7th round pick as a favor to Dion or something. The Cowboys take him as a favor to Dion.
Interesting stuff. Well, thanks for being out there.
Yeah,
BK.
It was fun.
Yeah,
hopefully they keep doing that every year.
Yeah,
where it and we saw Torrey Horton had a good pro day up at CSU.
Yep,
And
yeah.
I think he's going to fall because of the injury and the lack of production this year. As a result, he's going to be in like maybe even an early day 3 pick, but he's a guy that will come in, make a roster, and make plays, because we saw it 2 years ago when he's a Mountain West Player of the Year.
Well, Scotty coming in here for the second week and making plays too.
I'm telling you what, I'm over here.
Third,
We're doing it.
third.
Yeah,
This
third.
is third.
Well, yes, this is his third. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is his third.
I'm
Who's
total
counting?
pro over here. This
Yeah,
is
you
my
are.
pro day
Yeah.
every day.
You are
Every month. Well, it's not Monday anymore,
Every
but
month.
it's my pro.
Yeah,
early in the
yeah,
week, we
is,
get it.
is.
Every other day is just amateur hour.
Have you heard of Trusted American?
Oh, I've heard of it.
TrustedAmerican.com. Go check out TrustedAmerican.com. Trusted American Mortgage wants to help you save money, get into a better mortgage, better interest rate. Check out TrustedAmerican.com. Find how much they can save you. Something like that, right?
I think
Scott?
it sounded perfect.
You want to take us out of here?
Yeah, I feel like that's I'm Scott Shaffer, Brandon Krisztal, Nate Jackson. This is Off Field. We'll see you next week.
Later.
Bye. Need to